Okay, now we're moving on to our velocity and acceleration practice. Please follow along because I want to make sure you guys understand this. I know some of what I said kind of yesterday in class. I'm going to correct some of it, but just keep that in mind. So for our first one, we are just calculating velocity, and we have to be able to look at our charts carefully. So this is our meters, and this is our time. So what you can figure out is how far you're going in a certain amount of time. So you're finding your slope pretty much. So I'm going to pick 2 points. So my first point, I'm going to pick is going to be right here. And then my second point is going to be at my 0. So I'm going to calculate my slope. So what that means is you're going to do, so I'm finding my, I'm going up. So my rise over my run. So I'm going up 20, I'm going up 40 meters because 20. So your rise is 40 meters. So you're going 40 meters. And so you find your time. So from 0 seconds to 30 seconds. And that is going to give me 1.3 meters per second. So keep that in mind. You can honestly pick any 2 points. Those are just the 2 points I picked because I know earlier I picked another set of points. So if you wanted to pick this point, it's right here and right here, you can find the slope and you can find the rise over the run, so your distance over your time, and you're going to get the exact same answer. Okay, now moving on to acceleration. So keep an eye, your acceleration graphs change. So they're actually, it's not as hard as I was anticipating. So you have your velocity and your time. So to find our acceleration, we always use the equation acceleration equals our final velocity minus our initial velocity divided by our time. So in doing that, we're going to basically, I just pick your 2 points. So your first point and your second point. So in finding my final velocity, so that means what's my second point. So this is my second point. So I am going, so my velocity, so I'm just finding my velocity. So that would be 3. No, it should be 2. So your final velocity is 2 minus your initial velocity of 0.5 divided by the time it took. So from 0 to 3. So you're going to get acceleration equals 1.5 divided by 3. So your acceleration equals 0.5 meters per second per second. Meters per second is also classified as 0.5 meters per second squared. Okay, so on this one, I kind of want to review that again. So you find your 2 points, okay? That's the first step. Then you take your final, which is going to be this first point, minus this point. So you look at the distance on this side. So I took my 2 because that's where it lined up, minus my 1.5, so it was in between. And then I calculate how far my time went. Oh, so this went up 3 seconds. Sorry, that's my bad. I did that wrong. So this went up. That happened in 3 seconds. Okay, moving on to the next page. We're going to continue. We are just doing acceleration problems. So, sorry, I went on to the next page too quick. For the first one, I always like to write down my equation first. So you're going to do A equals your final velocity minus initial velocity divided by your time. Then I like to pick out my 2 points. So my first point and my second point. My first point is at 10 meters. So that's my final speed minus my start point of 0, or my initial of 0. And this happened over 5 seconds. So my acceleration equals 10 divided by 5, which equals 2 meters per second squared. And I'm hoping you guys have some remembrance of this from last year too. Okay. Hopefully I went through that one kind of quick. So if you need to pause it and look over it or rewatch it, feel free to. Next question. I again like to write down my equation first. And the more you write it, guys, the more you'll know it. So your acceleration equals your final velocity minus your initial velocity divided by your time. So I'm going to highlight my 2 points. So that's my initial velocity. This is my final velocity. So be aware that those are going down. So my final velocity is 10. My initial velocity, oh, I am so sorry I said that wrong. Okay, so give me 1 second, guys. Okay, so your final velocity is where this far point is over here, which is on the 0. So it's 0 minus, and then this is your start velocity, which is 4. So 0 minus 4, and then this happened over 10 seconds. So you're going to get negative 4 divided by 10, which equals negative 0.4 meters per second squared. And if you guys want to use a calculator, you can, or you can use your calculator on your Chromebook. You can use a calculator on your phone. I'm okay with that because I know we don't have enough calculators. Okay, next problem. Again, write down my equation. Acceleration equals final velocity minus initial velocity divided by time. So in looking at this one, I highlight my 2 points. So this is my final velocity and this is my initial velocity. So I'm going to have A equals, so my final velocity is at negative 5 minus 0. And then this happened over 10 seconds. So from that to that. So you get negative 5 divided by 10. This equals negative 0.5 meters per second squared. So don't forget about that negative. That means you're decelerating. Okay, that is all for that page. We're going to move on to the next page. Please, if you need to pause this again, you are more than welcome to. Or if you need to ask somebody if you don't understand something, that is fine. I know I am going kind of fast through this. Okay, so we have a few more problems. We have about 5 more problems left. So this is, again, you're finding your acceleration. So my first step, I like to write my equation. Acceleration equals final velocity minus the initial velocity divided by time. I highlight my start point, or that's my end point, and that's my start point. So that's my the first one I did was my final. That's the end of the graph. And the first one and the second one, which is right. Normally on your x-axis is your initial. So my final velocity, I'm going 25 meters per second, and my initial, I'm going 10. And this happens over my 10 seconds. So I'm going to get 15 divided by 10, which gives you 1.5 meters per second squared. Okay, moving on to the next one. This is our last one with the graph. So again, this is an acceleration. So A equals final velocity minus initial velocity divided by our time. Highlight I like to do my final velocity minus my initial velocity. You can do vice versa. It is completely up to you. So at my final velocity, that I am all the way up here at 5 minus, and then my initial velocity is actually negative 5. So make sure you do minus a negative 5. That means, if you remember from math, a negative minus a negative, subtracting a negative changes into a positive. Okay? And then that is all happening in 5 seconds. So you have 10 divided by 5. So your acceleration is 2 meters per second squared. Okay, we are all done with those acceleration problems. Now we are going to move on. I'm actually going to stop this video, and then for the next 3 problems, we'll be on the next video. I have a video length limit right now, so just a heads up on that. So this one's going to stop, and then the next one will cover the last 3 problems, and which are word problems that we'll be using the guessed method to find our velocity, or to find our acceleration.